Behind the walls of grand and quiet mansions, sometimes lie stories no one would ever expect. A normal night. An unusual silence. And then, a single act would spark a search for the truth. But what surprised everyone most wasn't the clue itself. It was who left it behind. This is a story about loyalty. About silence that speaks. And about a dog named Nero. That night, the mansion felt buried in silence. No sound. Not a whisper of wind. Only pale moonlight stretched across the cold stone steps leading up to Mr. Marek's grand home. Sophia, his 17-year-old granddaughter, had just returned from a friend's birthday gathering. As the taxi pulled away, she paused at the gate, sensing something was off. All the windows were dark. Except one, upstairs. The study light was still glowing. She entered quietly, slipped off her shoes as always, but this time, her heart stirred with unease. The grandfather clock struck 12. In the stillness of the house, her footsteps echoed louder than usual, enough to make her stop and listen. She reached the door to the study, thick, wooden, slightly ajar. Sophia hesitated, then slowly pushed it open. A warm line of light spilled out from the desk lamp. And then, she saw him. Mr. Marek, her grandfather, lying face down on the carpet. No movement. No sound. Just a surge of fear rising fast in her chest, freezing her on the spot. She stood frozen for a moment. Then let out a scream. Sharp and filled with a fear she had never known before. Less than 30 minutes after the emergency call, a police car rolled quietly to a stop outside the mansion. Detective Anthony stepped out, his sharp eyes trained by years of reading subtle signs. He didn't rush. He didn't speak much. Just took in the scene. Then entered, calmly. Inside, under the faint light from the study, he paused. No signs of struggle. No drawers pulled open. A valuable ring and expensive watch remained untouched on the hand of the man on the floor. The safe in the corner. Locked, undisturbed. Everything, eerily still. Anthony knelt to examine the scene, the warm desk lamp casting shadows across the lines of his furrowed brow. Quietly, he scribbled a few short notes in his worn notebook. No theories spoken yet. Only silence. And the steady gaze of someone who had learned, silence often speaks the loudest. While the forensic team worked inside, Anthony stepped quietly into the backyard, where the night still clung heavily to every corner. A breeze moved through the trees, whispering through the leaves. And then, something caught his eye. Faint, barely there. A pale red trail, thin as thread, stretched from the back steps toward the garden wall. Not bold. Not obvious. But enough to make him stop. Beside it lay a snapped metal chain. Anthony knelt down. There, a mark in the grass. A scrape. Without hesitation, he pulled out his phone and called for a second sweep of the area. His eyes narrowed. Not because he had found the culprit, but because the path to truth had just begun to appear. Nero, a Doberman Mr. Marek had raised for 7 years, was a loyal companion and quiet guardian of the house. That night, like every night, Nero had been chained in the yard. But when Detective Anthony approached, the chain was broken, lying across the grass like a silent signal. Sophia mentioned, Nero rarely barked without reason, unless strangers approached. A quick veterinary check confirmed it. Nero's teeth bore a tiny, very tiny, trace, from close contact with a human. A small biological sample was collected, and matched the trail near the garden wall. Antony didn't speak. He simply looked at Nero, now resting quietly by the porch, and nodded slightly. Some witnesses don't speak. But their actions speak louder than words. After gathering early evidence, Detective Antony returned to a method as old as his instincts. One by one. Rule out, narrow in. The first was Tomasz, Mr. Marek's eldest son, now running the family company. There had been tension. A heated argument over a business deal. He had a motive and a temper. But that morning, Tomasz had been in a boardroom, with over 10 people who could confirm his presence. Down to the exact minute. The two housekeepers, Jadwiga and Konrad, had left for the countryside the day before, attending a family memorial. They were seen, documented, verified. Then there was Pyotr, the long-time driver. He was nervous, evasive. For a moment, Antony thought he might be hiding something. And he was, but not what they were looking for. A private matter. Painful, but unrelated. Each name written down, then crossed off. The circle of suspicion grew smaller. But the darkness still had no face. With familiar connections ruled out, all that remained were names from the past, half forgotten. And then, that name resurfaced, Christian. An old associate. Once involved in major projects, until Mr. Marek abruptly ended the partnership, no explanation given. Since then, Christian had vanished for nearly a year. Zofia recalled one evening, hearing her grandfather mutter in annoyance, "That man, looks like he stepped out of a horror story." The housekeeper remembered too, whenever Christian visited, the atmosphere grew tense. Even Nero growled without reason. Since Marek cut him off, no one had seen Christian again. Until now. When an invisible thread was pulling a shadow from the past back into the light. Christian was found at a rundown motel on the city's edge, remote, aging, much like the silence he had maintained for nearly a year. When officers entered, he was sitting still on the edge of a bed. Eyes sunken. Leg bandaged. No words were needed. Antony already knew. Lab results confirmed it. A perfect match with the trace found in the garden. The wound was from Nero's bite. At first, Christian said nothing. Then he sighed, lowered his head. His voice was quiet, worn out. "I only wanted to talk." But he wouldn't listen. I lost control. No excuses. Just a man, pushed back by the weight of his own shadows. The story did not end with accusations. Not with anger. Nor tears. It ended with loyalty, from a dog. Nero, who could not speak, who could not write. Yet through a single act, opened the final door to truth. He did not seek reward. Did not wait for praise. He simply did what he had always done, protect his family. The next morning, Nero was seen lying quietly by the porch. Head resting on his paws, eyes gently closed. Peaceful. As if everything had returned to where it belonged.
Thank you for staying with us until the end. Every view, every heart that connects is a little light that keeps us going. See you again in the next story from the Paul Light.